Jiang Yu is a survivor in a city where reality is a fraying veil, constantly punctured by abyssal gates that spill monsters into the streets. The rules are simple: kill the invaders or mutate into the very horror you seek to destroy. But Jiang Yu isn't just another fodder soldier. He harbors a forbidden shadow entity that obeys his every command. He forces this nightmare to dance, to study, and to fight, turning a parasitic curse into his own personal weapon. The change happens when he realizes his own existence might be a calculated deception, a manufactured life in a world waiting to be reset. Now, he stops hiding, choosing to seize the power of the abyss to reshape a world that treats his life as a disposable variable. He is no longer the boy waiting for the end. He is the one who will dictate it. The truth of his origin lies deep within the ruins of a forgotten past. Jiang Yu feels a sudden, sharp surge of energy, his eyes locking onto the stern man who looms before him with an air of absolute authority. A mysterious figure watches from the shadows, and as Jiang Yu's status bar drops to 18%, pain racks his body. Jiang Yu spots a trapped silhouette reflected in his own eye, so he moves quickly through the hospital hallway to reach the exit. He scans the patients with his ability, noting their health percentages, and flashes a confident smile as he monitors the system status bar. Jiang Yu pauses to tie his boots and lights a cigarette, his mind racing as he processes the growing threat. He kneels to draw dark energy before dashing forward. A green burst tears through the area, leaving Jiang Yu gasping as an onlooker watches in shock. Jiang Yu sees his own reflection trapped in a golden energy sphere, and as the power surges through him, he trembles in sheer distress. He reacts to an ominous green glow in the city as a fierce combatant lunges toward him with a blade. A woman battles a winged monster while Jiang Yu stares at the structure dominating the skyline. Jiang Yu fights a shadowy entity amidst the ruins, clashing with skeletal monsters while their health bars flicker in the chaos. Shock grips him as a green orb manifests in the sky with logic-defying power. Later, Jiang Yu stares up at a ruined building, his mind focused on absorbing energy while he travels through the city on a crowded bus. Concern etched on his face, Jiang Yu confronts a man behind a desk before stepping into the green-lit interior of the train car. Stepping off the transit, Jiang Yu sharpens his focus, his senses registering the volatile world around him. Power surges within his chest, manifesting as energy lines and a red emblem beneath his skin. As he walks through the night, he reflects on a fragile, fake piece of the city until his vision fixates on a bloodshot, alien eye watching from the dark. He faces the green orb, realizing the chaos has begun. Abyss monsters swarm the ruins, forcing him and his summoned shadow skeleton to take to the air in a desperate battle for survival. Amidst the fray, Lu Yaoyao suddenly lifts her shirt, her gaze intense as she demands to know if he is concealing a weapon. He feels the raw power coursing through his veins, reminding himself that the line between a transcendent and a mindless beast is razor thin. Choosing to master the darkness, he radiates a cloud of black smoke as his shadow entity manifests to answer the call. He unleashes this dark power, molding it into a hardened construct of energy that encases his arm. Later, at the First Central Hospital, a man in a suit questions his presence, clearly confused by the heavy, unnatural atmosphere of the room. Dr. Zhao asks him to describe his symptoms, and Jiang Yu focuses intently, his eyes beginning to glow with an unsettling, unnatural intensity. He reports seeing a strange red layer covering everything, which the doctor notes as a swirling, ethereal aura. The room grows heavy with a menacing presence as dark energy begins to manifest directly above the doctor. When asked for his age, Jiang Yu struggles to answer, his vision flickering as it registers a corruption level of 18%. He questions the doctor's true intent, prompting a frustrated retort as the man wonders if he has even entered the correct department. Jiang Yu quickly analyzes the doctor's status, noting his low vitality before bluntly asking if the man drinks alcohol. The doctor shakes his head in confusion, apologizes for his lack of focus, and decides to examine the strange phenomenon himself. Dr. Zhao leans in close to examine the eye, instructing his patient to look to the left to check for any lingering issues. Jiang Yu inspects his own bloodshot eye, noting that while the doctor finds it acceptable, his own vision reveals a red silhouette reflected in his yellow iris. Leaving the clinic, he scans the hospital hallway, observing the health percentages floating above the patients to assess their condition. He dismisses the need to treat his conjunctivitis, telling himself that his newfound power is finally manifesting. He questions the use of seeing blood layers, then leaves the hospital to investigate the creature emerging from the shell. Jiang Yu stands on the street, preparing for his mission by tying his boots, while he reminds himself to think carefully once he returns home. He questions the strange, ghostly entity appearing before him, then accelerates as his body is suddenly enveloped in a surge of magical energy. A powerful blast of green energy silences the surroundings, leaving him panting in exhaustion as he stares in shock at the shifting environment. The protagonist endures an intense surge of power, his inner demon reflected in his eyes as he prepares to leap into the fray. He reacts to the magical pressure, narrowly avoiding a strike from a female warrior wielding a glowing blade. As the warrior engages a monster in aerial combat, Zhang Yu is forced to confront multiple serpentine creatures and spiders to survive. He and his summoned skeleton warrior fight off a horde of insect monsters. Though the mounting difficulty of the battle leaves him feeling overwhelmed, checking his status window to confirm his health is fully restored, he turns to his opponent with a warning that it is time to panic. He channels dark energy, spots a symbol on a skyscraper, and realizes he is running late. He stands on the street helping an elderly man navigate while reflecting on how the Night Patrol Bureau has served as a support for citizens since the Great Cataclysm. A child remarks on the city's safety as a street vendor approaches, offering to sell Zhang Yu counterfeit medicine at a heavy discount. He questions if the city's safety is a lie crafted by the interface in the sky. The vendor pushes medicine from a local printing factory, claiming it is indistinguishable from the real thing, but Zhang Yu scoffs at the absurdity of hawking pills while monsters roam the streets. Clenching his fist in frustration, he struggles to reconcile his surroundings with the feeling that his reality is an elaborate deception. Ignoring the man's relentless sales pitch, Zhang Yu steadies his breathing as the vendor continues to insist on the quality of his factory-made goods. He tosses out a playful inquiry about divine oil, hoping to catch the persistent salesman off guard with an unexpected question. While boarding the bus, he contemplates the exorbitant price of that oil, his mind spiraling with paranoia as the city outside remains deceptively mundane. Heaps up the light-hearted interrogation, his gaze sharpening with genuine curiosity while he inspects the vendor's wares. Debating whether to report the suspicious pricing to the authorities, he watches the ordinary streets pass by, unsettled by the disconnect between his anxiety and the peaceful commute. Zhang Yu presses him again about the divine oil, using a thin veil of excitement to mask his growing suspicion. Caught in a cycle of doubt, he questions his own sanity as the bus rolls toward his destination. Unable to shake the conviction that something is fundamentally wrong, he delivers one final pointed question to the vendor before retreating into a heavy, contemplative silence, his features hardening. He worries about the oil's cost, trying to convince himself the street outside is normal. Stepping off the bus at Huanan Road, he fixes his gaze forward, every nerve focused on confronting the truth. He finds himself staring at a strange green-lit environment where his own reflection shifts into that of a mysterious entity. The sharp, shooting pain in his body confirms this is no hallucination, but rather a violent, dangerous second growth spurt. Back at his residence, he discovers a red floral pattern blossoming on his chest, recognizing it instantly as the mark left by his previous attacker. Memories of a specific library surface, and he stares at his reflection in shock, desperate to connect the tattoo to what he saw there. The realization hits him that the mark and his assailant are tied to a glowing book from his past, leaving him reeling in alarm. Green veins erupt across his skin and he screams in pain, realizing he is becoming something other than human. The pain fades as he rinses off, relieved that his marks are receding. Checking his reflection, he finds his power level has hit the 100% threshold, a vital milestone if he hopes to survive the encroaching abyss. Stepping out onto the floor with renewed determination, he freezes as a sudden, chilling realization stops him cold. Panic rises as he spins around, noticing his shadow is missing. The boundary between human and beast is razor thin, and he fears he has already crossed it. He exhales in relief upon spotting the dark silhouette nearby, acknowledging that in this bizarre reality, losing his shadow would be merely the beginning of his undoing. As he prepares to sleep, a shadowy entity manifests before him. The shadow doppelganger looms in the doorway with hollow, white eyes perfectly mirroring his own form. He recoils, recognizing that this confrontation is inevitable. Mastering this power is the only way to survive a world that treats him like a target. Declaring his intent to seize control, he feels a grim relief that the shadow is bound to him, even as it pulses with a dangerous, independent will. He channels his inner energy, the air humming with tension as he prepares to test the limits of his dark double. Commanding the entity to raise its hand, he watches closely to see if it obeys his every gesture. He commands the shadow to move, grinning as it mimics his gestures against its will. He poses to test their connection, then commands the shadow to strike with a spectral hand. A sharp buzzing drills into his skull, leaving him to wonder how this manifestation suddenly breached his home. A status window flickers to life, unlocking the shadow devouring ability, and confirming his double shares his memories and strength, though he remains wary that the line between transcendent and beast is but a whisker away. The system interface confirms the shadow possesses his memories and can execute simple commands despite its lack of independent thought, prompting him to watch as the silent, incorporeal entity mimics a dance to test if it truly shares his consciousness. Glowing white eyes loom in the darkness as he stares at the entity, demanding to know if it truly holds every memory of his life. When the shadow approaches him in his computer, he presents a complex calculus problem from his summer homework, eager to see if this construct can save him time. He tests if the entity can hold a pen, even poking at its head to gauge its physical form. But the creature remains unnervingly silent. The shadow begins to write the solution on the paper, but when it suddenly stops, he asks why, only to see the character for solve already marked. Boastfully claiming he could have finished it in 2 minutes, he tries to strike the entity with a rolled paper to test its tangibility, wondering if the problem was simply too difficult for it. Recalling the system's advice to experiment, he commands the shadow to write out the entire lesson from memory. Gripping a pencil amidst swirling energy, the entity works with a speed that leaves him marveling at the potential of using a superhuman construct to cheat on schoolwork. He turns to his system interface to explore other abilities, noting the shadow devouring skill, which allows him to draw points from darkness or decompose dead objects to enhance his power. Surprised by this potential, he wonders if he must make physical contact to devour darkness and scans his surroundings for a way to test this new strength. He huddles in a corner, reaching out to channel his power as he attempts to absorb the surrounding gloom, his hands trembling with the effort. A sudden cracking sound makes him nervous, and he realizes he lacks an instruction manual for this power until a notification reveals his shadow pupil ability, allowing him to observe the dark side of the world much like the strange place he visited before. Accepting this transformation, he decides to proceed step by step, but he is suddenly shocked and clutches his shoulder as if struck by a sharp, intense realization. He commands the shadow to perform push-ups to verify its physical state, but instead, the entity manifests fully in the bedroom with a low, rumbling sound. Without warning, the shadow vanishes into a dark portal on the floor, leaving him staring at the empty space in shock. Dark energy erupts as a menacing portal swirls in the room, and a powerful, dark silhouette with glowing white eyes emerges from the depths. As the dark entity emerges from the portal, Jong-yu pivots, demanding to know if it has been watching him all along. He mentions the imperial family, but the shadow ignores him to write the dark side in a notebook. He weighs whether training in that realm holds more potential, then dismissively waves his bandaged hand and records his plans. His shadow begins to act with a mind of its own, causing Jong-yu to sigh and collapse onto his stool, overcome by sudden fatigue. With a determined smile, he picks up his digital pen, the rhythmic sound of his work filling the quiet room. He lets out another breath, drags his stool closer to the desk, and locks his gaze onto the project with sharp focus. A grin plays on his face as he works, though his expression abruptly turns icy when he warns an unseen presence to flee while they still can. The click of a doorknob interrupts him, forcing him to quickly stabilize a magical object by flooding it with a touch of mana. At dawn, a woman checks her phone, completely oblivious to the fact that Jong-yu is spiraling into a state of shock and incoherent delusion. The girl ignores his irritation, enthusiastically pushing him to hurry up and start his new drawing, clearly eager to see his designs. Confused by a sudden, inexplicable drop in an intruder's health bar, he realizes exactly what is causing the disturbance at his door. As the doorframe begins to splinter under pressure, the girl continues her relentless demands for him to reveal his work. She recoils in shock when he suddenly slams the door shut, leaving him standing in the heavy silence of his room. The door is forced open anyway, and he clenches his fist in irritation as someone speaks his name, Jong-yu, aloud. A man in a suit panics at the confrontation, while the woman stares at him, accusing him of hiding something suspicious behind the closed door. She eyes his physique with disbelief, questioning if he has been hitting the gym, finding it impossible that a known loner could develop such defined muscles overnight. As she continues her interrogation, he retreats into the shadows, contemplating his power to reshape this reality, knowing the difference between a transcendent and a beast is just a whisker away. Lu Yayao stares at his physique with growing suspicion, unaware of the mysterious figure lurking in the shadows just out of sight. She reaches out to inspect his abs, demanding to know how he achieved such a transformation overnight, despite his history as an inactive loner. He holds a small object, his mind flashing to the man who killed his father, a memory that stokes the fire of his ambition. Ignoring his silence, she continues to pester him, offering to help clean the room while her gaze remains fixed on his changing body. He dismisses her prying questions, relying on the secret that his shadow trains in his stead, transferring all physical gains directly to his own form. She lifts his shirt again to trace the muscles, still unable to comprehend how simple exercise could yield such impossible results. As she mentions cases from her father's files, he snaps that she talks too much, acutely aware that he must keep his true nature shielded from her. The tension spikes when he reacts with sudden, blurring speed, leading to a scuffle where he nervously demands to know if she intends to use a weapon. She activates a device to measure his pollution index, explaining that consuming foreign objects without purification causes humans to mutate into monsters. He tries to laugh off the test, but the machine reacts to his chest mark, forcing her to draw her gun. While he struggles to suppress his internal corruption, she holsters the weapon, offering a stern warning that her father raised her to be cautious of such anomalies. He quickly diverts her attention by offering to show his designs, and once she finally leaves, he collapses on his bed, exhaling in relief at his narrow escape. A silent resolve to seize the throne settles over him as he turns his focus back to the system interface to track his growth. The display confirms his shadow has been training in the dark side of the world, granting him a surge of strength and shadow points that makes him wonder if his double worked through the entire night. He channels dark energy, releasing a surge of power onto the floor to test the limits of his doppelganger. Upon encountering the entity, he feels the immediate physical benefits of its nocturnal training and agrees to intensify their regimen. The shadow executes grueling exercises, including two-finger push-ups and the human banner, as Zhang forces its physical growth. Listening from outside, Yao Yao hears the sounds of the high-intensity workout and realizes her suspicions were misplaced. Relieved by his apparent dedication, she decides to head home, oblivious to the dark power manifesting within the room. Zhang celebrates his progress after the first day of shadow-assisted training, noting his strength climbing without the typical onset of fatigue. Driven by a refusal to remain ordinary, he pushes the entity further, marveling at the visible muscle growth appearing on his own body. When Uncle Li visits, Zhang calculates he is now strong enough to defeat the man, though he chooses to remain focused rather than succumb to arrogance. He maintains this relentless schedule, finishing his own work while the shadow trains, convinced that the difference between a transcendent and a beast is just a whisker away. By January 25th, he celebrates his gains, even as he continues to leave the bulk of the physical strain to his spectral counterpart. Confusion sets in, however, as he notices his shadow points accumulating slowly, leaving him uncertain how to unlock his next ability. Determined to accelerate his growth, he decides to enter the dark side himself. Meditating as blue energy swirls around him, he undergoes a transformation, finding himself in a dark dimension that mirrors his room and realizing the boundary between human and monster is thinning. He questions if this dimension marks the absolute limit of his reach, contemplating the weight of his situation. Dark energy crackles around his hand, manifesting as a bridge to span the distance between his current power and his goals. He materializes on a desolate city street, his gaze fixed on the grim, foggy alleyway stretching out before him. A sense of relief washes over him at finally breaking free from his room, and he prepares to unleash his abilities in this distorted environment. Frustration gnaws at him as he realizes he cannot access this dark side while remaining stationary within the physical confines of his home. He notes the technicality that he must step outside his room to enter this realm, which mimics the real world with unsettling precision. Anger surges as he patrols the dark road, only to falter when a lone figure emerges from the gloom in the distance. Turning to confront the silhouette, he demands to know if the figure has arrived to offer assistance. A scythe swings through the air, forcing him to scramble in panic. The entity roars and attacks, forcing him to dodge the lethal blade. He dodges again, caught completely off guard by the relentless, magical onslaught of the shadows. Activating his shadow ability, he triggers his circle to open just as the monster lunges with jagged red blades. He attempts a spell but loses his balance, tumbling headlong into the dirt amidst a swirling green aura. Crawling through the grime, he wonders why a gate manifested here and why this thing attacked without a moment's warning. He realizes that his grueling training has granted him the flexibility required to survive such a vicious strike. Gripping his weapon, he vows to show no mercy to the creature that dared to attempt his life. Memories of his first encounter on January 28th flash through his mind, recalling the sting of the initial hit he took. He remembers the second battle on January 29th, where his failure to secure revenge left him nursing nearly broken ribs. By January 30th, the entity managed to scratch his backside, draining 6% of his health and fueling his burning rage. On January 31st, he retreats to the safety of home, wincing as he applies ointment to his wounds. Lu Yao Yao questions if he has been fighting, but he dismisses her concern, claiming that scars are merely a man's metals. She reacts with confusion to his talk of injuries on his backside, warning him that arrogance will only grow as his body strengthens. Her reminder that only 1 month remains leaves him reeling, the shock of the ticking clock settling deep in his chest. She brings up the approaching martial arts test, forcing him to finally confront the stark reality of his limited time. Jong-yu channels his dark power, feeling the shadow rise to meet the looming threat. In a world where culture and art have withered, the public ignores entertainment, fixating instead on the Night Watch as their only national heroes. He understands that survival requires absolute caution, knowing the state martial arts exam is the only path to escaping his ordinary life. Yet, he dismisses the prospect entirely, telling Yao Yao he has no intention of taking the test. She bites her lip in frustration while tending to his wounds, only for him to reveal a genuine hidden desire to pursue the path of the Night Watch instead. He wonders if Uncle Lu would object, knowing such a choice would be scandalous for a senior executive's nephew. As Yao Yao applies ointment, she warns him to keep quiet because new laws mandate that everyone meeting the physical standards must take the martial arts exam. Jong-yu feels a strange sense of relief, though he realizes the pressure on the Night Watch has forced the government to stop granting exemptions. He recalls the strange instruments Yao Yao once produced and the tactical soldiers who fired on him during his test, doubting the Bureau's actual combat readiness. Doubts arise over whether his mysterious guide has led him into a trap, but a sudden realization strikes him. He asks if her reagent can repel alien species, but she admits it only detects them, advising him to run if he encounters a true anomaly. After she heals his injuries, Yao Yao asks to see his family's records on the paranormal, suspecting he knows more than he admits. Jong-yu deflects by excitedly pitching an idea for a comic about a boy who undergoes a superhuman transformation, prompting her to urge him on. He focuses on his shadow energy as she invites him into her room to retrieve the reference materials. While she heads toward her father's room, he discovers a book titled Destiny Space and confronts her about its suggestive content. Flustered, she denies ever reading it and claims a friend left it behind as they stand together in the room. She retreats to her father's room, leaving him behind with a sharp warning not to disturb her things, a dismissal that catches him off guard. Left alone, he surveys the space and recalls how she has clung to her passion for music since they were children, a hobby he once found trivial. A melody drifting through the room stirs a sudden, sentimental ache, dragging a long-buried memory of their shared past to the surface. Lu Yao Yao returns to tease him about this newfound interest, poking fun at his inability to distinguish basic instruments before playfully reaching out to touch his face. The mood shifts when an unknown figure presses a VR device into his hands, prompting him to strap on the digital visor and prepare for a transition. He pulls the headset down, and the portal drags him into the void. Unimpressed by the sterile emptiness, he drifts through the strange expanse until a familiar game interface flickers into view. He enters the abyss, where dozens of eyes open to track his arrival. Surveying the swarming shadow creatures, he recognizes the same exotic species that haunted the hospital and decides that retreat is no longer an option. He realizes he has entered the Shadow Layer, an infiltrated realm where alien species gathered before the abyss erupted, long since suppressed by the Night Guardian. As he parses the energy field, he notes that this layer functions on a 2-month cycle, constantly reproducing these parasitic threats. The system issues a warning about the rising alien population, yet he remains baffled by his own immunity to the pollution that twists ordinary humans into monsters. He recoils as the entity manifests before him. He vows to hold the architects of this chaos accountable, even as an explosion rips through the skyline. After receiving a final, ominous warning from the guild, he braces himself, acknowledging that only raw, extraordinary power can hope to counter such an alien threat. Energy surges as he transforms, his landing cracking the ground. He charges his strike while a bystander asks if passing the martial arts exam will grant him such strength. The entity expands into a cosmic humanoid that looms over the battlefield. Jong-yu grunts as the ambient pollution bites into his skin, his body racked by a painful, dark transformation. Serpentine shapes shift into view, flanked by the claws of a beast. The entity commands Jong to exhaust his remaining strength before it crushes him. The vision blurs, and Lu Yao Yao suddenly jolts him back to reality with a VR headset. Though the rush of outdated data leaves him feeling dizzied, he asks her for a quick back massage, and while she irritably concedes, he confidently offers to craft custom, high-definition designs for her in return. As she tests the rock-hard tension in his neck, the intimate moment shatters at the sharp, sudden sound of the door handle turning. Uncle Lu storms into the room, his aura radiating a furious, suffocating pressure as he prepares to unleash his authority. An awkward, heavy silence settles over the dining table shortly after, with Zhang sneaking nervous glances while the uncle watches him eat with piercing suspicion. Lu Yao Yao stammers to explain the misunderstanding, but her father refuses to listen. Taking the blame to de-escalate the confrontation, Zhang gulps down 3 cups of juice as a self-imposed penance, pleading for the man to see the truth. Uncle Lu shifts into a calm, gentle demeanor, assuring them with a thin smile that he will handle the unfolding situation himself. Zhang glances away, reflecting on the stark divide between his own reputation as a notorious troublemaker and her status as an educated young lady. Memories surface of their shared history, where he once stood between her and local bullies, likely the foundation for the special treatment she offers him now. Even back when he was nothing more than a homeless child, she stood firmly by his side, cheering him on despite the harsh disapproval of the world. The relationship remains fraught, especially given the uncle's long-standing wariness toward the bond they continue to share. He pulls out a cigarette and lights it in silence, his expression grave as he stares into the smoke, contemplating the uncertainty of what lies ahead. Uncle Lu exhales a cloud of smoke, his gaze lingering on the boy. But as he turns away, Yo-Yao returns to the room and demands to know what transpired in her absence, prompting Zhang Yu to project a subtle, supernatural weight into his reply. He pivots the conversation, firing off enthusiastic questions about the nature of aliens and the supernatural. Though he feels the older man's eyes tracking his every move with mounting suspicion, Yo-Yao offers a mischievous, lighthearted smile, yet Uncle Lu remains grim, pointedly remarking that Zhang Yu has become far too accustomed to being pampered. The elder calls out to him, explaining that the state keeps the truth about the supernatural under wraps because the human soul is fragile, prone to the kind of despair that lures individuals into the abyss. Zhang Yu attempts to offer a rebuttal, but is cut short by a sharp warning. Without immense willpower, even the slightest crack in one's psyche provides an opening for alien races to unravel a person from within. Mandatory qualification tests exist for a reason, the man continues, as only those with the necessary vitality and fortitude can touch the supernatural without being consumed by the path ahead, acknowledging that even with specialized gear, many still lose their grip on reality. He cautions the boy to steer clear of these dangerous secrets, to which Zhang Yu offers a polite, performative nod of thanks. When Zhang Yu notes that he cannot avoid the upcoming military exam, Uncle Lu concedes that while self-reliance is the bedrock of survival, a reliable partner becomes a necessity once the world begins to fracture. A sudden, sharp alert chime interrupts them, forcing the older man to abandon the discussion for an urgent Shadow Tier mission, his frustration evident as he prepares to depart. Before stepping out, he levels a stern look at Zhang Yu, demanding he behave himself, which earns him a solemn promise from the boy that he will treat Yo-Yao with proper respect. Yo-Yao promptly spits out her drink in shock, causing an annoyed Zhang Yu to reach out and pinch her cheeks, demanding to know why she insists on implying they have been up to no good. Once the house is quiet, he channels his dark energy while scrutinizing the propaganda posters for the Sunset Watch. Frustrated that the older man's gatekeeping has limited him to only the most basic information, he sighs in the aisles of the local market, his phone buzzing with a grocery list from Yo-Yao, and he confirms the items while listening to her voice on the call. Telling her to stop stuttering and simply ask for the feminine products she requires, he picks up the items with a faint, amused smile. As he walks home, he reviews his progress, realizing that while his shadow training is yielding results, he must integrate more practical, real-world combat exercises to ensure his survival. Everywhere he looks, the state promotes the war, and he notes that this year's martial arts exam has seen a surge in enrollment. Peering through the fence, he gazes up at the moon, sensing an inevitable catastrophe looming over the world. Deciding to set his worries aside, he focuses on hunting alien races to grow stronger. Cautiously scanning his surroundings, he activates his power, causing his feet to hover as a dark, magical aura radiates from him within the alley shadows. A status bar flickers into view showing 14% progress, and he continues to advance while his health remains critically low. Wounded and bleeding from multiple injuries, a man struggles forward through the industrial corridor, his face contorted in pain. He jumps backward to evade the figure, surprised to recognize a neighbor from his own apartment building in this dangerous place. Reeling from the encounter, he stares in shock as the man he just defeated lies bleeding on the ground with a status bar hovering above him. A shadow looms over a man and a crying child as the boy stares in horror. The entity displays a 24% status bar, and as he watches with a scowl, he remembers that the difference between a transcendent and a beast is just a whisker away. Contemplating the unfolding threat, he unleashes a powerful dark ability from his hand to prepare for the coming fight. Elsewhere, a Night Watch member complains about his heavy workload at the Night Watch department, regretting the day he ever took the martial arts exam. Hearing desperate cries for help, he witnesses a boy and a girl being consumed by dark energy as an alien entity abducts them. landing in a dark alley after the teleportation. The Night Watch member panics, knowing he is unarmed and likely to die without his pollution control equipment. He clutches his head, overwhelmed by a sudden realization as a blade swings toward him. Zhang Yu lunges, his movements blurring into a powerful, energy-laced kick, fully aware that the boundary between a transcendent and a beast is merely a whisker away. Following the clash, he realizes the rift has vanished, leaving them trapped as he watches the two children with growing dread while alien threats close in. He laments how his desk job has dulled his combat instincts, his heart aching for the terrified children who cry out for their parents, utterly defenseless against the encroaching darkness. Activating his distress signal, he presses his own protective device into their hands, choosing to leave their survival to fate rather than risk them facing the monsters alone. As the girl asks if they will survive, he urges her to hide, turning his focus toward the menacing shadow that laughs in anticipation of the hunt. Memories of his journey from the university's Great Powers Department to the Night Watch surface, specifically the day he first defeated an unclassified alien under Deputy Director Huang's guidance. The harsh realization hits him that his current strength is insufficient, confirming the bitter truth that in this world, natural talent far outweighs the years of hard work he poured into his foundation. Despite his relentless efforts, he failed to break his limits and was forced into the liberal arts department. Yet he grinds his teeth, refusing to surrender to his circumstances. Adjusting his bandages, he dashes through the city, determined to transform this lethal crisis into the crucible that will finally sharpen his latent power. A four-dimensional, mid-range beast looms over him, but he strikes back with precision, forcing the creature to shriek in agony as he fights for his very life. Clenching his fist, he clashes with the entity, his shadow power flaring as the thinning boundary between man and monster threatens to consume him. He weaves through the attacks to land a final blow, locking the creature in a struggle for dominance. A monster bares its teeth, but Jiang Yu smiles, recognizing the familiar threat. A tentacle impales him, slamming his body back before the creature follows with red blades. He laments that his body failed to react to the monster's speed, forcing him to dodge the incoming energy slashes alongside his ally. A powerful red blade strikes him, leaving him paralyzed by a sharp, needle-like sensation as the beast lunges once more. Resolving to stop stalling and end the fight, he feels a sudden, intense surge of power course through his veins. Zhang Yu unleashes a dark energy manifestation, activating his shadow power to blind the beast in a shroud of black. The creature screams in agony as he leaps through the air, narrowly evading its desperate retaliatory strike. Coughing up blood as his pollution levels spike, he reflects that his weak constitution makes wielding such supernatural abilities incredibly dangerous. While the monster lets out a guttural roar, Zhang Yu stands his ground to face the creature's dark red aura. The monster strikes him down, leaving him battered on the ground. Realizing the creature is adapting to his strength, he accepts that he is outclassed, yet he refuses to flee because he is a night watchman. He parries the blades to buy time. Hoping the night police arrive to rescue the children, the monster slashes him again, leaving him reeling in shock and agony. As he lies broken on the cracked ground, he wonders if this is where he finally meets his end. Memories of his family's murder by aliens at 15 flash before his eyes, reminding him of his path from the military at 18 to his 4-year tenure with the night police. The monster looms over the battlefield, casting a shadow that obscures all hope. Yet Zhang Yu meets its gaze with a knowing smile. Accepting his fate as a protector, he swallows a blue pill to stabilize the children before the portal closes. Agony flares to his battered frame, yet he steels his resolve, letting blue energy surge to sustain him for the next round. He lunges into the fray with a clenched fist, unleashing a torrent of dark energy that carves a path through the gloom. A monster appears in the dark, drawing a manic laugh from the man blocking its path. He advances with red blades, pushing through his wounds to maintain his focus. As the beast strikes with its own blade, he parries with a bandaged fist, crackling with blue energy to force a counter. He pummels the creature repeatedly, gritting his teeth against the mounting toll his own power demands of his body. Succumbing to the heat of the fight, he clenches a blood-slicked fist, driven by a raw determination to tear through the encroaching shadows. A strike sends him reeling, and he coughs blood, lamenting the backlash of his own ability. The reality of his former, mundane life dissolves entirely when he suddenly reappears before a bewildered, injured man clutching a single leak. The stranger eyes his youthful face with skepticism, doubting he could truly be a night watchman, so he simply urges the man to find safety. Before the man can react, a shadow entity slams him into the earth, leaving him in stunned disbelief at the creature's overwhelming speed. He narrowly dodges a lethal strike as the monster lunges again. Watching the creature's power signature climb to 23%, he exhales a steadying breath, weighing his odds in this chaotic void. He steps into the center of the conflict, declaring that the beast's only concern now is the man standing before it. Zhang Yu kicks the beast, forcing it to stagger as red energy ripples between them. He parries a jagged green strike with a bottle, though the creature immediately retaliates with a lethal sweeping scythe. The monster looms over him, but he launches a confident strike, reading the familiar rhythm of its movements from their previous encounters. Mocking the creature's faltering state, he unleashes a relentless flurry of blows that draw a maniacal laugh from the entity. An observer watches, bewildered by how the boy manages to suppress such a horror, despite lacking any formal technique. He lunges forward to settle the score for his past injury, his body wreathed in a surge of red magical energy. Driven back by a counter blow, he catches his breath and pivots to target the creature's waist, refusing to yield the offensive. He weighs his dwindling health, realizing he has only a sliver of strength remaining, but stays his ground to ensure the two children behind him remain safe. Noting the monster's vitality drop to 20%, he tightens his grip on the broken bottle and prepares for the final exchange. He calls out the creature's exposed right rib to his ally, narrowly twisting away from a searing blue energy strike. A grin spreads across his shadow as it suddenly manifests, its malicious presence catching him entirely off guard. Coordinating their movements, he and the shadow launch a synchronized assault, carving into the monster's exposed left flank. He moves with a burst of high speed to land the strike, successfully driving the entity's power level down to 18%. The creature lunges with a crazed cackle, leaving him to wonder if the desperate maneuver is a frantic attempt to escape. Panic surges through his ally, who screams for him to finish the fight before the situation turns fatal. The entity ignores the toll on its body to snap its jaws at the children, intent on devouring them. He instantly unleashes his dark, supernatural power, throwing himself into the path of the attack to intercept the strike. The shadow entity looms over Zhang Yu, gathering energy to deliver a final blow. He shields the terrified girl, pleading for the creature to cease its lethal assault. He readies a can and charges, pouring his strength into a downward strike. He intercepts the monster to protect the child, bracing for the coming blast. The collision rocks the alley, leaving him to stare down the red-eyed beast that threatens everyone he protects. Laughing manically, the creature launches a violent assault that sends a bystander flying, forcing him into a desperate struggle. He coughs blood as his health drops to 9%, while the monster lets out a guttural pain scream. Countering with a barrage of energy blades, he forces the entity to a halt before grabbing its face to strangle it. He unleashes a final, surging attack, taunting the monster for being an alien species as the system logs his progress. Pinning the creature to the ground, he finds himself shocked by a sudden, strange energy manifestation coursing through his veins. He delivers an electric-infused kick, screaming in rage as he vows to kill the threat once and for all. He triggers an explosion of red energy to match the monster's own power. Gasping for air, the bloodied fighter stands guard over the two children, his powers still vibrating in the cracked alley. Exhausted, he smiles, satisfied that he finally avenged the assault he endured. He reaches out into the darkness of the hallway, where a shadowy figure emerges from the void to meet him. Unleashing his dark power once more, he pushes against the fragile boundary between himself and the beast. He surveys the burning ruins of the building, stunned by the carnage surrounding him. Suddenly, shadowy claws lash out and he is overwhelmed by a violent surge of dark, red energy. A hand reaches into the shadows and he wakes up on the ground, relieved to realize it was only a dream. He stares ahead, blood-stained and wary, struggling to recall his actions after killing the alien. Touching a mask-like object, he smiles while harnessing his shade-eating ability to draw on dark power. He monitors the man's critical condition through his system interface, noting that his HP is dangerously low. Without warning, the man grips his shoulder, and they both collapse onto the ground from the exertion. The man asks if he is a night watchman, clearly surprised that he does not recognize his own neighbor. After the neighbor mocks his fighting ability, he complains about the lack of gratitude for saving his life. The neighbor laughs and praises his unique style, while he checks on his companion's worsening injuries with concern. Zhang Yu watches the man, pondering if all night watchmen manage to maintain such high spirits while standing on the edge of death. The injured, purple-haired survivor asks about his university and age, leading Zhang Yu to lie about being a sophomore at North Metro Academy to safeguard his anonymity. Skeptical that a liberal arts student could handle a first-level, mid-level threat, the man accepts his claim before offering a box of biscuits after Zhang Yu asks for a cigarette. He offers a smoke to a large creature nearby, then shares his remaining pack with Zhang Yu since the rest of their supplies were scattered during the fray. Standing together in the gloom, the man asks if this marks Zhang Yu's first time engaging an alien in solo combat. He voices envy toward the combat and martial arts students, lamenting his own poor qualifications and the bleakness of his future. Attempting to offer comfort, Zhang Yu is met with the man's grim observation that civilian willpower is as fragile as cotton wool, proving that human hearts struggle even when the body is strong. As corruption creeps across his bandaged hand, the man questions why a civilian would willingly choose to step into these shadows. Clenching his fist, Zhang Yu admits to a deep, gnawing regret for having entered this dangerous whirlpool instead of choosing a lazy life as a desk clerk. He urges his companion to take it easy, fearing the man's injuries will prove fatal if he continues to push his body this hard. Gripping his device, Zhang Yu listens as the man warns that evasion skills won't be enough to save him if he keeps wandering into alien territory. Terrified by the intensity in Zhang Yu's eyes, the man begs for a moment of respite while his companion channels dark power, readying himself for the next inevitable confrontation. The man praises his unexpected bravery, though he notes that Zhang Yu remains just as reckless as before. Zhang Yu asks his companion to convey an apology to the head of the Supernatural Technologies Department for his failure to eliminate even a first-class creature. Smiling smugly, he tells the man to thank Deputy Director Huang for her guidance, despite finding her lectures on human survival to be deeply embarrassing. The man suggests he deliver that message himself after recovering, finally opening up about his long-held secrets and his ties to the Northern Watch Academy. Zhang Yu offers a strained, awkward smile, declining the request for cookies while pressing a hand against his blood-stained thigh to mask his own mounting pain. Spotting a night patrol officer nearby, he points toward the alley, informing his companion that help has arrived and their safety is secured. He gathers his scattered supplies, but when the man invites him to travel together, Zhang Yu politely declines the offer, preferring to venture forward on his own. With a smirk of cold confidence, he bids the man a safe journey and adjusts his tactical gear, bracing himself for the dangers lurking ahead. Scanning the night sky, he discovers a wounded night patrol officer trapped in the alley, currently surrounded by 3 tactical soldiers and 2 children. An unsettling sensation washes over him as he approaches the armed men, his internal system registering a power level of only 10% because he has yet to exert his full strength. Suddenly, he freezes in surprise, watching his opponent's health bar plummet to 9%, a clear sign that the boundary between human and beast is thinning. He stares at the rapidly draining health bar in shock, struggling to accept that this lethal condition remains untreatable despite all modern medical intervention. Unleashing his shadow energy to confront the masked figures, he watches them salute in fear as he commands them to shift their focus toward the immediate threat. As his system status hits 0%, he undergoes a volatile transformation, his body radiating a surge of dark energy that forces him to react in sudden alarm. He thrusts his hand forward, unleashing dark tendrils to crush his enemies. Dazed by the carnage, he stands amidst the wreckage, his hands still slick with the blood of the fallen. Passersby on the bustling street recoil at his appearance, forcing him to confront the grim toll of the violence he just unleashed. A phantom voice echoes in his mind, warning that his survival is improbable and marking him as an anomaly among the dying. Meanwhile, the Night Observation Department mobilizes its forces for a desperate, suicidal purge, demanding absolute sacrifice from every soldier. He channels the lingering dark energy to steady his trembling frame before stepping out of the elevator, his body pushed to the absolute limit. A sudden, luminous gate materializes before him, instantly dragging his mind back to the hollow ache of his brother's death. Reaching his residence, he remains haunted by the erratic, desperate behavior he witnessed in the man's final moments. He pauses to mourn that lonely, quiet end, vowing to carry the memory of the sacrifice as he crosses his threshold. Adjusting his hood to hide his face, he prepares for rest, desperate to scrub away the day's gore. A quick check of his status reveals a health percentage higher than anticipated, a small mercy that steels his resolve to continue. He heads to the kitchen in search of sustenance, recognizing that fortifying his willpower is just as critical as honing his physical edge. Surprise stops him cold when he finds Yao Yao waiting inside, her immediate demand for the missing eggs shattering his peace. He demands to know how she entered, and she coolly explains that Uncle Lee provided the spare key to keep tabs on his poor nutrition. Noticing the fresh wounds on his body, she reacts with genuine alarm, but he quickly deflects, terrified that her father might discover his true state. She physically blocks his path to the kitchen, clutching his sleeve to ensure he stays put while she prepares a meal. He tries to pull away, spinning a tall tale about fighting off a common robber to hide the truth of his superhuman exhaustion. Lu Yao Yao says she beat him beyond recognition, and Zhang Yu touches his face, acknowledging her words. She struggles to catch her breath, leaving them both in a heavy, tense silence where the boundary between human and monster feels thinner than ever. As she reaches out to touch his face to check the damage, Jong-yu panics internally, suddenly realizing the danger of letting her continue to believe his reckless lies about fighting off common robbers. He quietly focuses his internal energy, his hand beginning to glow with the dark, jagged power of his shadow as he prepares for the next inevitable threat. When she asks if he is in pain, he simply smiles and tells her to go back to sleep, leaving her flushed and speechless at his calm dismissal of his own condition. She threatens to tell Uncle Lee about his late-night brawl and scolds him for such recklessness, dragging him away as he protests that he was merely acting righteously. Suddenly, he collapses in exhaustion, feigning weakness to avoid the hospital while insisting that the medicine provided by Uncle Lee is more effective than any clinical treatment. Dr. Zhao questions his motives as she bandages him, but he screams in agony when she wraps him so tightly he resembles a mummy, complaining that he hates being restricted. She slaps his arm, forcing a promise that he will never join a fight again while he looks down, reflecting on the situation. Lu Youyao denies his request for a formal oath, explaining that she only watches from the sidelines to satisfy her curiosity, leaving him struggling to breathe and panting in distress as he tries to convince himself to stay away from the danger. Preparing to leave, she mockingly suggests he stay in her bed if he wants to stay overnight, sticking her tongue out at the injured man one last time. Resting on the couch, he recalls his brother's mission to guard the Northern Watch Academy, but a sudden notification startles him, causing him to turn around in surprise. He shouts at the empty room, demanding to know his brother's name. A mysterious green portal manifests, and a system window identifies him as an intermediate creature, noting that while killing him would cost an arm fracture, the record is now exempt from the usual price. He wonders if he must use shadow devouring to record his kills, while his shadow entity chuckles, mocking the thin line between man and beast. A surge of golden energy pulses through him, unlocking the intricacies of his shadow assault skill as he studies the system interface for its activation requirements. He attempts to trigger the ability, but his physical form remains stubbornly frozen, leaving him standing in the room in a state of confused silence. Frustration mounts as he wonders if the system is mocking his efforts. Eventually realizing he cannot manifest the skill without an active target and deciding to wait for a more viable opportunity, he turns his attention to his rogue class status, finding the terminology peculiar and questioning why a hunter of shadows would be described as hiding in darkness rather than stepping into the light. Deep within the system, he discovers a new shadow form that enhances his healing and physical prowess while masking his aura, noting that while it prevents death even from beheading, the 99% health penalty is a grim price to pay. Pushing aside these concerns, he commands his shadow to manifest. Watching as a dark entity rises from the floor to meet him, he touches the entity to merge as cosmic energy consumes him to grant a new power. Experimenting with this form, he pushes his speed and defenses to their absolute limits, laughing as he effortlessly blocks heavy objects and realizing once more that the gap between transcendence and beast is razor thin. Suddenly, an angry neighbor shouts for him to keep the noise down, forcing him to quickly deactivate his form to preserve his low-key lifestyle. Turning back to the interface, he sees an offer to fully awaken his rogue position. It promises exclusive authority over the branch abilities, though the system issues a stark warning regarding the significant risks involved. He eyes the system prompt, offering to fully awaken a new position, weighing the inherent risks against the potential for growth. Despite the interface's stark warnings, he decides the rewards justify the danger and confirms his choice to proceed. He panics as shadows erupt to engulf him, trapping him within a sphere. Seconds later, he stabilizes as the system bestows the hunter status upon him, confirming his evolution into a born killer. Blue energy veins pulse beneath his skin, while the system notes that his rising notoriety as a shadow hunter will trigger unexpected gains. Dark energy coalesces in his palm, and he realizes that even gods would struggle to escape the reach of his newfound power. He vows to own the consequences of his actions, bolstered by an execution skill that now highlights the fatal weak points on his targets. Testing this strength, he slices through a creature, confirming that the execution threshold scales directly with the combatant's relative power. Standing in his room, he recalls the red spots seen on previous monsters and realizes those were the indicators for this lethal ability. Laughter escapes him as he feels invincible, realizing his ability is fundamentally broken. The boundary between a transcendent and a beast is truly just a whisker away. He pauses to adjust his bandages, genuinely confused that the catastrophic risks promised by the activation never materialized. Glancing down, he notices his wounds have healed with unnatural speed, attributing the recovery to the shadow form he just mastered. Elsewhere, Yao Yao and her classmates gossip about his exaggerated social media posts. Though she dismisses his claims of fighting traffickers as simple posturing, leading her friends toward his apartment, she produces the key provided by his uncle to finally see the truth for herself. She calls out to him while turning the lock, only to be met with his sudden, startled shout from within the room. Zhang wakes in agony, gasping, "It hurts. I underestimated how hard it is to pick off these scabs." Lu Yaoyao confronts him about his missing bandage, but he dismisses her concern, insisting the wound is already healed. Two classmates whisper about the truth of his recent social media posts, while others marvel at the sudden, impressive muscle definition on his bruised abdomen. She orders her companions to wait in the living room, only for a sudden startling noise to interrupt the mounting tension. As he prepares for the day, onlookers speculate on his relationship with her before he retreats to his bed to avoid further contact. He recalls unleashing his dark power during a fight, while she tends to his wounds, promising the medicine will be painless. Confused and wondering if he is still dreaming, he snaps at her for accidentally reopening his sensitive injuries. He politely attempts to leave, but she scolds his perverted behavior and decides to have Xiaopeng take over his care instead. Zhang Yu rejects the idea of Xiaopeng's help, leading her to tease him about the lack of proper care from Uncle Lu. When she questions his suspicious excuses regarding the robbery, he jokingly claims he was busy killing a mutant in the shadow layer. She asks about Uncle Lu, prompting him to reflect on the exhaustion and danger inherent in the life of a night patrol officer. He sighs, acutely aware that she lives in constant worry for her father, whose career is defined by such high risks. Peaceful lives are rare, he notes, citing Uncle Lee's lost arm and the death of Lin Mo, while Uncle Lu's own foundation remains permanently shattered. Lu Yaoyao asks if he will join the night patrol after the martial arts exam, leaving him in a deep, pensive silence. He tries to deflect the heavy conversation by jokingly asking if there are many beautiful women in the unit. She reacts with annoyance and pinches his cheek, triggering a heated argument about her aggressive demeanor. Their bickering continues until he looks away, his expression hardening as he remembers the one person he is truly sworn to protect. In the silence of the room, he stands ready, his dark power flickering as he prepares for the dangers that lie ahead. Zhang Yu laughs, questioning how his visitors managed to track him down as they stare in confusion at his erratic behavior. They point to a strange mark on his skin, but he waves off their concern and invites them to sit, insisting he is far from deaf. While he recounts a mundane shopping trip, an observer on the couch watches the scene with mounting annoyance. Determined to recover his stolen belongings, Zhang Yu tells his companion she is free to discard his pile of torn clothes. He gives his approval only to be struck by a sudden traumatic memory of a time he was ambushed by 80 men in the woods. Panic surges as he lunges toward his companion, realizing he left something critical hidden inside those discarded garments. He startles her into dropping the package, and she eyes him suspiciously, demanding to know why he had it in the first place. He offers a gift, saying, "Your stomach hurt yesterday, so I went to get this for you." She threatens to tease him with photos, but he tries to soothe the situation by taking her hand and promising his future support. She stubbornly refuses his comfort, her face flushing with frustration as she pushes him away. Bewildered by her sudden outburst, he flinches in pain when a sock flies through the air and strikes him. Once the visitors finally depart, he stands alone in the room, letting out a long breath of relief at the silence. He triggers his shadow ability, testing the power as he declares, "Shadow." Overflowing with raw power, he prepares for a grueling exercise, his body crackling with blue electrical currents. The energy swells into an overwhelming, swirling storm of magic that consumes the space around him. Stepping into the shadow layer, he realizes that while the real world is thick with pollution, this dimension feels as refreshing as a vast, open plain. With his physical health restored and his stomach pain gone, he decides it is finally time to begin his training in earnest. He pushes his body to the breaking point, unleashing a strike of electric speed that launches him into the air, exhilarated by his seemingly limitless strength. He trains with mechanical focus, counting his repetitions while blue lightning pulses around him, reminding himself that the difference between a transcendent and a beast is just a whisker away. Activating his dark form, he steps into the shadow layer to feed, liberating himself to absorb shadow points and bolster his strength against the dangers lurking behind the boundary. He resolves to feign mediocrity, carefully maintaining the facade of a struggling trainee so his superiors overlook his true potential. Dashing forward with supernatural speed, he pauses to deflect a prying question by invoking his father's memento, mocking his opponent's concern to shield his true motives. Feeling the walls of his room closing in, He steps outside, struck by the grim realization that his chosen path mandates a life of constant isolation. Out on the city streets, he channels electricity into his grip, wondering aloud why he lacks any disciples in a world where raw power is the only currency that defines one's status. Roving in a blur of blue light, he jokingly declares his grand intent to become the world champion of the horizontal bar, masking his lethal intent with levity. Back at the night patrol headquarters, he joins the officials in a tense meeting room, harboring a silent, simmering vow to make his enemies regret their actions. An official reports that pollution levels are surging and cracks are appearing across the city, with the most dangerous activity concentrated in residential zones. Once a dungeon stabilizes and opens, he immediately demands to know his brother's whereabouts. Sensing that these abnormal fluctuations are no longer random occurrences, he taps into his dark ability, preparing to face the combat ahead. Inside the briefing room, tactical operatives review the recent harrowing incidents where civilians were dragged into the shadow layer. They examine the file of a deceased individual, haunted by the fear that these strange, fatal occurrences will multiply and threaten the general population. The team distinguishes between minor shadow layer disturbances and the significantly more lethal abyssal fissures, which unleash creatures as catastrophic as Godzilla. A senior official urges the room to remain calm, reminding the operatives that they have been preparing for this inevitable, world-altering fight for a long time. As the man stares forward with grim resolve, elsewhere, a wounded character struggles to reach the infirmary, clinging to life. 3 tactical operatives linger in the dim corridor, clutching their casualty reports and sharing a rare moment of relief as they brace for the grim task of documenting the recent losses among the night guards. A superior officer barks a command for a status update, his tone dripping with disdain as he mocks his subordinate for being overly talkative. Leaders congregate around the conference table to dissect the mounting death toll, while Jong-yu drifts to the expansive window, his gaze fixed on the skyline as he calculates his next strike. Stepping onto the cold ledge, he lights a cigarette, his irritation simmering at the audacity of his enemies to ignite this chaos right in the middle of the holiday season. Nearby, a man freezes as he clutches a small red cube, his eyes widening in terror as he realizes the woman beside him is teetering on the edge of a magical explosion that could level the entire sector. Jong-yu watches the unfolding drama through a cloud of smoke, unfazed even as a mischievous girl swaps his pack for cookies and a stray red box whistles past his head. His expression hardens into a mask of cold resolve. He refuses to let these threats dictate the terms of his reality, offering a cigarette to his companion, who declines with a dry quip about lung cancer. The man grins, entirely unbothered by the mortal danger surrounding them, and impatiently snaps at Jong-yu to stop stalling and get straight to the point. Acknowledging the man's bluntness, Jong-yu lets out a heavy breath, warning that whoever steps through the door next is the one destined to bring this world to its knees. They receive a new notice from above, prompting him to ask, "What kind of notices?" Jong-yu readies his dark energy to tear through the ruins. While back at the office, his companion eyes a new report with deep suspicion, confirming they have both received the same urgent alert. The man flips open his laptop to verify the emergency, noting the mandate that all individuals with second-grade abilities or higher must take the specialization test, though he remains torn over his daughter's future path. Speculation turns to Jong-yu's own prospects, with his companion wondering if he will specialize in spiritual energy or exotic species, a question that makes Jong-yu slam his fist down and declare he wants no part in either. As they argue over the inevitability of his being forced into a science track should he pass the test, Jong-yu finds his focus slipping, his mind suddenly haunted by the memory of a woman's face. He steps forward, cutting off their debate with a firm refusal to participate in the testing process. Just as a man's sly laughter startles a nearby woman, and a mysterious figure turns to stroll away into the shadows. Together, they examine a new notification from the shadow layer, where the line between a transcendent and a beast is thinner than a whisker. This entity greets explorers with surprising docility, and the team notes that no prior records of such behavior exist. As she seeks his expert opinion, a chilling realization strikes Jong, revealing the true predatory nature of the creature. Jong films the encounter, narrating the supposed taste while anticipating that this footage will skyrocket his online fame. Suddenly, a sharp system notification interrupts his recording, warning that as a hunter, he must kill to survive or face his own end. He screams at the interface in frustration, but his anger turns to icy shock as he sees his remaining lifespan has plummeted to a mere 100 hours. The warning repeats, locking him into a desperate reality where every second counts, reminding him that the gap between a transcendent and a beast is just a whisker away. realizing that accessing the assassin website triggered this countdown. He understands that he must hunt and slay strange creatures to buy back his life. He ponders the system's cryptic promise that immortality is achievable through slaughter, and that a form of existence persists even if his physical body falls. To extend his time, he commits to defeating the local creature, using the secret account provided by his uncle to record the battle without fear of detection. He focuses on his goal to prevent the coming calamity, reaching into the darkness for his shadow as he prepares to film the fight. He shifts his focus to a live stream of the creator hunting strange creatures, though the comment section is flooded with mockery regarding the streamer's appearance. He creeps toward the monster, whispering, "Don't make noise, let's approach it quietly." The creature awakens with a burst of energy, forcing him into a fight. As his heart hammers against his ribs, he strikes, recoiling at the intense red energy radiating from the target, a sign that the boundary between him and the monster is thinning. He slips into his shadow form to evade the electrical surge, noting, "I'll use my assassination skill to find its weakness." Charging forward, he channels dark energy into his weapon to deliver a punishing blow, proving he is ready to unleash his full power within the city ruins. Nearby, the monster contemplates its own survival, having recently fought and consumed one of its own species to recover its strength. Sensing a child in the vicinity, the creature grows anxious and decides to abandon its current position in search of a safer place to rest. He delivers a blast that makes the beast scream as shadow points surge into his body. Contemplating whether he needs to target specific points to extract maximum power, he shrugs off a counterattack while monitoring the creature's rapid blood loss. He successfully drives the rod into the monster's weak point, then dissolves into the ground using a shadow attack to reposition for the kill. Remaining patient, he knows the difference between a transcendent and a beast is just a whisker away, and he waits for the perfect moment to deliver the final blow to his supernatural prey. The entity lets out a mocking laugh, questioning whether the boy truly believes he is the hunter in this lethal game. Jongyu centers his focus, preparing to unleash his shadow power while reminding himself that the divide between humanity and the beast is merely a whisker away. Across the digital landscape, a night patrol officer streams a briefing on low-level threats, oblivious to a separate broadcast featuring a hidden restaurant that draws viewers unaware of the lurking danger. Back at home, a white-haired girl scrolls through these feeds in boredom until a sudden, mysterious notification flashes across her screen. His silhouette emerges on the platform, identified as the sole individual capable of altering the world's trajectory. Fixating on a broadcast featuring a shadow spider and ancient, demonic entity, she finds herself captivated by the mysterious figure behind the hunt. A warning echoes that merely staring at the spiritual patterns on his body invites pollution, and then uncovering the true origin of this story demands a heavy sacrifice. Annoyed by the arrogant chatter in the comments, she types out a suggestive message to him, lamenting that she lacks the funds to properly support his journey. Watching his silhouette dominate the live stream, she grows increasingly convinced that he is an exceptional being beyond the common reach. Amused by the mounting tension, he leaps from the shadows to ambush the spectral monster as it begins to manifest. His rod strikes, but the monster retaliates with a blast that shakes the skyline. The beast recoils in surprise as Jongyu appears in the alley, saying, "I'm here." He channels his dark energy one more time, bracing his body to confront the next challenge head-on. Jongyu taunts the multi-legged beast, mocking its inability to land a single strike despite its 8 flailing limbs. Far from the fray, a silver-haired girl watches the livestream on her phone, utterly captivated by the mysterious fighter's blurring speed and raw presence. The monster fires a purple energy beam, but a mechanical spider intercepts it, showing how close the line between human and beast has become. Undeterred by the sudden interference, the creature scoffs at the opposition and prepares a fresh, lethal assault. Jongyu mocks the monster for relying on a clumsy citrus-based trap, then catches it completely off guard by appearing atop a nearby building. The shadow entity declares that no place is ever truly devoid of darkness. Surging forward in a streak of intense blue energy, he demonstrates his supernatural mobility, revealing an uncanny ability to teleport and leap freely through the shifting shadow layers. Emerging from the gloom like a predator, Jongyu channels crackling electricity into his staff to prepare for a decisive blow. Struggling to hold on to his memories, he swings his glowing weapon against the spider. As he fights for his grip, the spider pins him down and announces its name. A shadow calls out to Yu, who counters the beast by activating his shadow swallowing ability. Both forces collide in a violent surge of blue lightning, the air around them crackling with raw dark power. A sudden sense of déjà vu washes over Jongyu, making him wonder if he has lived this exact moment before, until he delivers a final strike to end the hunt. The public watches the spectacle in absolute awe, with viewers and the silver-haired girl alike reacting with intense, wide-eyed excitement to the display. Fans scramble to follow the Killer Yu on social media, with one user even attempting to place a high-reward bounty on an assassination mission through his fan group. Checking his system interface, Zhang Yu identifies the creature as a first-class low-level shadow spider, an ancient demon type whose spiritual pollution scales with its body markings. He examines the small, unremarkable remnant of the creature, disappointed that such an effort yielded only a rank 1 specimen. Yet he acknowledges the widening power gap and the utility of the newly acquired shadow attack. Exhausted, Zhang Yu tells his companion to wake him at their destination. Nearby, a young woman stares downward, her shoulders shaking as silent tears stream down her face. He shifts his gaze, his eyes narrowing as he issues a cold warning to the unseen observer, promising they will soon regret their interference. Focusing on the faint, pulsating blue energy coiling around his palm, he recognizes the manifestation of the Shadow Silk ability. He fires electricity at a skyscraper, accepting that this is the only path left. Caught by his own momentum, he swings his lightning-charged staff and leaps to deliver an electrical strike. He lets out a manic, hysterical laugh, mockingly styling himself as a Spider-Man before burying his fist into the wall, shattering the concrete upon impact. Propelling himself and his opponent skyward with raw voltage, he winces in discomfort, realizing he must master the Shadow Sylph's feedback to mitigate the physical strain. A quick check of his system interface reveals his remaining lifespan has crawled up by a mere 3 days, leaving him with only a week to survive. He drops into a low crouch, his body crackling with volatile blue electricity as he readies his next assault. A sudden system notification chimes, informing him that his surging reputation has successfully unlocked new Hunter-class powers. He wonders if his growing infamy is the true catalyst for this strength, genuinely surprised to see his viewer count explode to 1.5 million following the broadcast. Thrilled by the sudden influx of power, he flashes a predatory grin, feeling more than ready to put in some extra work. While he hovers amidst a storm of lightning, a sudden, sharp target reticle locks firmly onto his position. The monster claims to have found its target, so Zhang Yu grins and says, "Let's hunt." Later, he winces as a gentle hand tends to the gash on his cheek, startled by the unexpected arrival of Lu Youyao. She confronts him immediately, demanding to know why he risked his life in the field instead of remaining safely at home. Zhang Yu tells her not to judge his heroics without understanding the stakes, but she counters skeptically, noting that a true hero doesn't return home covered in fresh wounds every single day. He explains to Lu Youyao that he can heal minor wounds rapidly using his shadow form, admitting he left these injuries untreated only to facilitate their time together. She confronts him for muttering to himself, but he brushes off her suspicion and suggests they find a movie to watch instead. Dismissing his idea as boring, she pulls up a trending creator on her phone, leaving him visibly shocked by the content on screen. Confused by the term YouTuber, he watches as she plays a video of a shadow-wielding assassin, instantly recognizing his own signature power. He spits out his water in surprise, struggling to hide his embarrassment when she asks why he seems so agitated by the footage. Boasting that the blogger has hit the trending list in just 2 days, she wonders aloud if he agrees, leaving him to question the legality of broadcasting such supernatural secrets. Fearing the Night Watch might target him for his sudden fame, he worries until she reassures him that the videos only reveal basic, non-impactful information. She encourages him to follow the blogger, and as they stand in close proximity, he is rendered speechless by the intensity of the moment. Pointing out a fan-made video featuring him, she watches his reaction, and he looks back at her with a soft, affectionate expression. He asks if she is truly serious about her own plans to record videos, while she strikes a playful, confident pose. Mocking her idea of dancing in a shadow lair, he earns a scolding as she warns him not to think he can compete with the experience of night patrol seniors. She tells him to change his clothes to avoid stalkers, but he jokes about losing one, prompting her to taunt him. Without warning, she appears behind him and presses the barrel of a firearm against his side. She accuses him of getting hurt while stalking girls, leaving him stunned with his hands raised. Held at gunpoint, he listens as she playfully threatens to make him cook as punishment for his behavior. He contemplates the nature of creation and destruction, silently vowing to ensure the gravity of this moment is never forgotten. Zhang Yu sits on the couch in shock, dropping his phone as he reacts to his surroundings. Shaken by the rejection, he retreats to the couch, only for his phone to erupt with a barrage of notifications that reveal his sudden, unwanted surge in popularity. Scrolling through the vitriol, he frowns at the online harassment where the public, whipped into a frenzy by a blogger named Real Deal, accuses him of staging his footage and demands he reveal his face. Real Deal drops a new video exposing him, dismissing the creature footage as a cheap hoax, which draws a crowd of skeptics eager to pick apart the authenticity of the supposed monster. The blogger breaks down the frames, claiming the video is heavily edited and pointing to perceived inconsistencies in the lighting and background to solidify his argument of fabrication. He wonders why a mere food blogger is so desperate for clout, scoffing at the man's arrogant, unsubstantiated claims regarding his own past glory as a monster hunter. Determined to silence the critics, he resolves to hunt another mutant, confident that his nature as a predator makes him a living nightmare for his enemies. After stepping into the shadow layer, he spots a miniature camera abandoned in the gloom and quickly readies his own gear for the hunt. Though the shadows seem thinner than before, his senses sharpen the moment a spectral, skull-faced entity manifests in the darkness nearby. Identifying the entity as an ambush predator waiting to strike other mutants, he prepares to engage, intent on showing the creature what a true hunter is capable of. He halts his advance, scanning the industrial ruins as his internal energy begins to gurgle and shift in anticipation of the clash. Maintaining his composure, he warns himself to avoid reckless mistakes, mocking his own predicament as he ascends the dark, decaying stairs. Dark energy coalesces around his hand as he confronts the spectral entity, which clicks rhythmically while looming in the narrow alleyway. He locks onto his target, a focus so intense that the creature recoils in a sudden, inexplicable burst of fear. Suspecting this is an evolved form of the sight monster he faced before, he asserts that he has also evolved to meet this new challenge head-on. Unleashing his full power, he executes the sixth staff technique, Rising Dragon Staff, driving his weapon toward the spectral enemy. The spectral entity manifests at 45% capacity, leaving Zhang Yu stunned as it steps out from the dark. The assailant lunges without warning, forcing him to leap over a purple energy blast. He quickly activates his hunt skill to boost his agility, knowing a swift kill now grants him extra rewards. Striking the creature with his electrified weapon, he gains the spirit of the forest and poison resistance before they clash midair. Zhang Yu recoils in shock as the phantom looms over him, compelling him to prepare a desperate counterattack. He lands on a ledge and dives back into the fight, only to face a destructive energy discharge. He wonders if his ability to see the system is tied to his own mortality, then slashes wildly at the entity. The monster bares its fangs and he struggles to survive the high-speed assault. A vibrating roar hits him, and he realizes with horror that the creature is utilizing mental attacks. He slashes with his scythe but suddenly spits out his drink in shock at a realization. Coughing, he watches his health drop to 65% because the entity's strike proved devastatingly effective. Identifying his opponent as a fragile, agile assassin, he decides he must immediately switch to a strategic approach. He taunts the creature while dodging, but the entity unleashes a surge of dark energy to strike him down. The creature falters in surprise, allowing Zhang Yu to drive a fist into it as a path to victory appears. Mocking the entity for its failure, he ignores its warning that he is trapped and cannot escape. The entity claims this territory and unleashes its final magical assault. Scoffing at the repetitive trick, he delivers a decisive strike, finally ending the creature's reign. He pummels the skeletal entity with a barrage of electrified punches, forcing the creature to recoil under the weight of his surging dark energy. The monster surges forward in a desperate counter, but Zhang seizes a pulsating magical core to stabilize his own fluctuating power, knowing the difference between a transcendent and a beast is just a whisker away. Forcefully restraining the creature's hand, he breathes heavily and declares that he will be the one to finish this. Finally silencing the threat, shock registers on the entity as it identifies him as a night watchman, leaving Zhang to wonder why his simple hunt has spiraled into such chaotic territory. He kicks the entity back, ignoring its frantic cries for mercy, because he has one final question he must force out of the creature before the end. He runs through the dark until he stops to catch his breath, realizing he barely survived.